Welcome to the latest in the AEO Centenary Sessions. My name is Jo Burton and I manage the projects and the working groups here at the AEO. I've been invited to speak with this year's AEO Excellence Awards Outstanding Contribution winner, Simon Kimble. And just to make you aware, before we begin, at his request, Simon hasn't had sight of any of these questions, so we're putting him on the spot a bit, but I'm sure he'll cope just fine. So firstly, thank you for joining us and congratulations on your award.
Thank you very much, Jo. Lovely to be here. As you can see, we're recording this I'm in sunny Fulham. So it's nice to be back in the office. One of my first days back in the office. So looking forward to hearing what you have to throw at me.
So many of you will know Simon in his role on the AEO Council and as chairman of Clarion Events. But for those of you who don't, Simon, could you start by telling us a little about the path that led you to this point in your career?
Certainly. I've been a long-term servant to the event industry, but I started life in leaving school and going into the Royal Air Force, which I did for 6 years. I did the Short Service Commission in the Royal Air Force, which was an excuse really to miss university and to do all the academic stuff, which I didn't like at all. I think it was inadvertently one of the best decisions I've ever made, because I actually traveled a lot and learned a lot. And I guess it did one thing which I didn't realize how valuable it would be. It taught me a little bit about leadership at quite an early stage, which I think is probably lacking in all of our careers. We tend to get promoted to a position of incompetence and not know how to actually lead and how to manage people effectively. So that was a really great head start. And then I came into the events world, and I was lucky enough to land with a great guy called Tim Etchells, who was a very entrepreneurial, or still is a very entrepreneurial organizer. And he taught me, and I worked with him for 10 years, and he taught me a lot about how to run exhibitions, how to run and work in communities. And so we were a small business, basically launching and creating new events, which I did, as I say, for 10 years. I set a small spell then with as managing director of BBC Haymarket Exhibitions, which was managing the joint venture between Haymarket and the BBC content. So we had shows that I had previously launched, like BBC Good Food Show, Clothes Show, Gardener's World, etc. And that was an interesting thing for me, because it was a little bit more political, as you can imagine, working with an organisation like the BBC, difficult with talent and exciting at the same time. And then I had the opportunity of becoming managing director of Clarion, which had recently been, at that stage, was part of Earls Court Olympia and had been taken over as a private business. So we worked as a sort of a hardware software content, Earls Court Olympia obviously being the hardware, Clarion, the purpose of which was to actually regenerate and create new events for Earls Court Olympia. And we separated in 2004, and I remain with Clarion ever since, where we've been growing and doing our thing.
Amazing, thank you. So we all know that this has been a hugely difficult period for the industry. So it would be really good to know from your perspective what you've learned from the last year, and what you've been able to draw from it, and have there been any positives you've been able to take from what we've all been going through?
Boy, yeah, it has been an awful year from all the events perspectives. I've learned a huge amount, and I guess that's the bit. Is, I've spent huge amounts of time thinking about what is it we're going to find on the other side, whenever we do get to the other side, and what is going to be changed permanently, what has been changed gradually, and what is important. And I think, I guess if we know the answer to that question, we're going to be successful, and hopefully we will make some of those bets right. I think it's been a big wake-up call for our industry, and I think what has been apparent to me is that those businesses, be they large or small, and the teams that have been closest to their markets have probably done the best. I think there are obviously different sectors that have actually been more attuned to a digital play, and there are other sectors that are not so attuned to a digital play. So again, a little bit of luck as to where where you're working. But without a doubt, those people that are closer to their markets and have actually understand their markets in a much deeper way have managed to change and create new revenues, even new products, and in some instances actually do better than they did pre-COVID. Not many of those, sadly, but nevertheless enough to show that. So I think that the learnings really is how we can use that understanding to shape our businesses going forward. And I think there isn't one size that fits all. It is a sector by sector approach, and it does depend on where we are at with the type of events that we're doing. But there's no doubt in my mind that we need to be deeper, more integrated into the communities that we're serving, and probably serving them with not just event products, what I would call live and non-live products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that community piece is huge, and I've especially found it, in our community as our industry, with sort of support and networking and mentoring schemes that seem to be popping up. I feel like that collaboration is stronger than ever. So I think that's a real positive that I can take from this last year. So on that tact, has there been anyone in your career who has truly inspired you or given you an invaluable piece of advice?
Oh, lots, actually. I've been very lucky. I'm careful to say also, I think you can learn even more by people that are bad or their mistakes, and you can see what other people are doing wrong and then learn from them. But no, I think there have been quite a few actually, which, as I say, has been, I try to seek them out really. I'm quite an inquisitive person, and therefore always looking at different people. And I would say I mentioned Tim Etchells early on. He was a relentless understander of a market, really got deep, really got to know people very well, and became a part of that market, and that's how he was successful. There are then other people that I've had the privilege of working with. I worked for a man called Andrew Morris, who was my boss at Earls Court and Olympia, and he was extraordinarily value-driven, extraordinarily family-driven, and very much making sure that people were, enjoyed what they were doing, that they spent the right time, the right balance, and that it wasn't all about working stupid hours. It was actually about being smart and being inspiring. And he was just that. He was a very inspiring man, and everything in between really. It's quite interesting. So I think we've all got something to give others, and I think I get a lot from many people, young and old. I think that is the elixir of life, in my opinion, is keeping learning and observing and picking up those little nuggets from great people, and we've all got greatness in us.
Yeah, amazing. And as an industry, we know that we are all about our people. We always have been, and I think it's been tough. We've lost so much talent out of our industry over the last year. We did a talent impact study, and we are the 4th highest number of job losses, with sort of 32,000 less permanent employees pre-COVID than now.
Wow.
So there are lots of us, who are waiting in the wings, ready to get back to, the work that they love. So what would you say to them who, holding on by their fingertips?
Well, I think the hard answer is that we probably need to learn a new trick. And I think that's, we're all a bit guilty of a bit of complacency. And I think we're all very good at doing what we've been doing. What is it, the old Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours, that we get quite good at it once we've done it for 10,000 hours. And I think that we're perhaps, that we've had such a good time in the events business pre-COVID that we didn't need to really adopt and adapt as quickly as we perhaps should have done. So I think that I think the advice it may sound a little bit harsh, but I think we do need to look in the mirror a little bit and look at what our skills are. What do we need to? Where are we lacking a bit? Where do we need to think about things in the future? And how can we change as individuals to make sure that we can rebound and not just rebound as we were before, but rebound with that new energy and that new spark and that we're able to give. And I think one of the things that I've been sort of frustrated myself is that, that I know what I know, and so therefore, I've been advantaged the last year. We don't really often have a pause where we can look at what we don't know and look at how we've been doing things. And I think it's looking at that and perhaps reinventing ourselves a little bit is going to be the secret of people getting back into work quicker.
I think that sort of answers my next question. When I was looking at your interview with Darren Johnson, when he gave you your AAO award, Outstanding Contribution Award, he described you as unafraid to fail. So I suppose that sort of lends itself a little bit with that. How do you go about being unafraid to fail and throwing yourself at things like that?
I've done quite a good job at failing. So I think the old cliche, the more you fail, the more you advance, which is I just think is quite true. I think first and foremost you've got to have the right personality to accept that failure and embrace it. And it takes a little bit of while to get used to doing that. People don't like to admit their mistakes, and so therefore that's tricky. But I think it's just that inquisitiveness that I have and others have that enable you to do that. And I think that it's the constant path of seeking for something new. It's the constant path of it's a tiring path sometimes, and it's exhausting to those around you as well. But I think I don't know. I kind of I look back almost every year. That sort of January the 1st moment when you look back at your last year, and I can't help but laugh, because sometimes I think, oh my goodness me, I made some mistakes in that year. I wouldn't do that again. And I wondered when I was 25 whether that would stop, and now I'm now 27. It hasn't stopped. 27 years and plus later. In as much as I keep looking back and I keep learning. So I think it is around the ability to look yourself in the mirror and also really keep looking at what you don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree. I mean, I think as well as that mental health has been really brought to the foreground over the last year, and people are quite happy to talk about that and manage that. So again, with those failures and that career journey, I can't imagine it was always sort of straightforward and stress-free. So how do you go about sort of decompressing and ultimately managing your mental health?
Well, I'm predominantly quite lucky because I'm a glass half full type of person. So I think that's I guess that's a good starting point with mental health if you can do that. I think also the ability to not dwell on things. Clearly a lot of things go wrong, and a lot of things have been pretty awful, both on a global scale, let alone on a personal scale, let alone on an event scale over the last year. It's just dreadful. And so that's not particularly uplifting, and certainly if you watch the news every night, it's even more so. But I think you have to stay fresh. So for me, the dark times have to be, you have to start thinking about something new again, and newness or new energy or people can provide that energy. There's that, and of course we've had a lack of that, but a lot of Zoom, but you can still get it a little bit from Zoom. But I think that there are, I don't know, someone described me once that there are two types of person. There's radiators or drains, people that radiate energy or people that drain your energy. And I think if you're feeling a bit low, you need some radiators around you. And I'm lucky that I know quite a few radiators. Wouldn't like to be called a radiator, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. I like that. I might be using that one. So the reason for us doing the AAO centenary sessions is because we've been around for 100 years. And we all know how much has changed in that time. So 1921 was the first year that Cambridge University admitted women to study full degrees. So we've come far, but it feels as though we are at a real turning point now to affect change from a diversity and inclusion perspective. The AO has launched a D&I working group who are making some great moves, but we know we have a long way to go. So I also know that Clarion has a culture of tolerance and inclusion, and diversity and equality are a large part of your vision and your values. So how do you think we go about disseminating that through the industry?
It's such a difficult topic, because I think we all want it to fix overnight, and I just think that's the problem. It can't be fixed overnight, but we've got to keep trying. We've got to keep doing things. So, are we as individuals, collectively, businesses, doing enough? I guess some are. I don't think we are as necessarily. I think the issue that we've got to get right, and it's not quite answering your question, but maybe it helps go in the direction of, is that I think we've got to work out where we want to land with this. How is this really going to change? And in accepting it's not going to change overnight, where do we want to be? What sort of advancements do we need to make in the next 10, 20 years? And I think that's got to be a real authentic look at what we are and where we need to go. And I think we struggle to do that. I think we all want it to change, but I'm not entirely sure we're authentic about it. I'm not entirely sure that we're doing it in absolutely the right way, because I don't think anyone knows what the absolute right way is. So it reminds me of someone was reminding me of when the riots were in Toxteth in Liverpool, that they were, in the early 80s, and they were talking about how can we actually, this is terrible for society, what can we actually do? And the actual response at the time was, they could send more money or whatever, but they actually started to look at the whole culture and art scene and everything else, and that's why I think the Tate went up to Liverpool and things like that. So they started to get, how can we get proud of what we're doing? And I think there's some things within that resonate for me within the whole diversity. How can we be proud of what we are doing? How can that be then authentic, so that we can drive to the solution that clearly needs to be had, but not an easy one at all.
No. Okay, they're the more difficult questions done. So this one is a quick fire round. Okay.
Oh dear, I think they're harder.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Favorite film?
Blimey. I love film so much. Favorite film? Gladiator.
Nice. I didn't think that would be the one that got you on the spot. Most defining career moment?
Good heavens, this is quick fire, and I can't think. I've had so many wonderful career moments that most defining career moment would be probably joining the Air Force. How about that? That was probably I mentioned that earlier.
With a close second of winning your Outstanding Contribution Award, though, I'm sure.
Of course.
Oh, this favorite word?
Absolutely.
Biggest career regret?
Biggest career, I would love to have lived and worked abroad. A 3-year detachment or something like that. I've loved London, and I've always worked in London, but I'd love to have done a stint in New York or some great city.
Yeah, agreed. I was listening to Simon Foster and Simon Parker talking about that the other day on the EN channel, and yeah, Simon Foster's lived some nice places. Favorite band?
Yes. Old-fashioned Queen. Freddie Mercury, what a performer.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. Greatest hope for the industry?
I greatest hope. I think we will. If we think of this right, and I'm not entirely sure I agree in all virtual, but I certainly agree in hybrid, and I certainly agree in the non-live or the hybrid element. I think that we could bounce back, not just and get back to where we were, but we can get back to where we were plus the hybrid. I think we could be 1.5 times better than we are now.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us, but also talking with such candor and openness. It really is appreciated.
Jo, well, thank you very much indeed. And I'm sorry I wasn't so quick at the quick fire. I told you that was the bit I was going to struggle with. Thank you very much. Have a great day.